Okay, now that your car is finished, as you can see here, I have my car. It is a single symbol. It's my car symbol, which has all of my animations involved with it. So if I double click over here on car, you can see my bounce animation is right here within my car symbol, not on my scene one. My scene one should just have this single frame, and you can see the tires and everything are all associated with it, so I can move it all in one place. So that is the car completed. So we can actually go ahead and select our car with our selection tool. We'll click on the car and just press delete. It doesn't delete your car because it's still over here in your library. It just removes it off of your stage for you. Because we want to have a nice clean and open stage so that we can draw our background or our backdrop. Okay, so we are going to use just a couple different tools here to create our backdrop. We're going to start off with our rectangle tool. Now with our rectangle tool, we have a couple different settings we need to change. For this particular road we're going to draw, we want to draw this in object mode. If you remember, let me show you the differences between object mode and non-object mode again. Object mode, if I draw a rectangle here, and then I'll come and draw a different colored rectangle on top of it, maybe I'll just do like a pink rectangle, I can go ahead with my selection tool, move that around, and you can see it cuts pieces out of there when I move it around. So this can be useful for certain applications, but our road, where we're going to have the road with the red, or excuse me, not the red, the yellow stripes going along it, if we decide we need to change our road, as soon as we go to move it or make a change to it, it's going to start slicing pieces out. Where if we turn on our object mode, so grab my rectangle tool, if you remember, object mode is down here in the bottom right, on the very bottom of your toolbar. When I draw a rectangle now, and then another rectangle over top of it, you can see I can move these around as much as I want to without it slicing. So let me delete this. We're going to grab our rectangle tool, make sure our object mode is turned on, and then here in our properties, we're going to want to set our properties before we draw. So I recommend you don't use a stroke here, and you'll see why in just a little bit. And I'm just going to go with a black road. So as I draw my road, I want my road to extend beyond my stage in both directions. That will be useful when we make our actual animation. So there's my road. And I want to go ahead and draw those yellow rectangles. But I don't want to switch this to yellow right now because you can see if I do, it'll turn that to yellow. So I'll press Control Z to undo that. I need to deselect this because right now I have my drawing object. So if I just grab my selection tool, deselect, and then go back to my rectangle tool, I can now change that fill color to yellow. It still remembers from what I just barely did. I'll go ahead and I'll just start drawing some of those stripes on. So I'm going to draw my first stripe, but I don't want to go ahead and draw the rest of my stripes because, see, that one's a little bit longer. You know, I might draw another one and it's out of place. The easiest way to copy these is to grab your selection tool. So with your selection tool, you want to click on that first one. You can tell it's selected because you'll see it says drawing object up here in your properties panel. And then if you hold down Alt on your keyboard, you can click and drag and it's going to copy that. You can see if I'm dragging like this, I can drag wherever I want. So I'm still holding down Alt. I want to hold down Shift as well, and that will make it so I can only draw straight lines. So I'm going to drag that over, let go of my mouse before I let go of Alt and Shift, and then do that again. So I'll hold down Alt and Shift and drag over. Alt and Shift, drag over. For some reason, I like to hold down Alt first, then click, and then hold Shift and drag. I don't think it actually matters. Let's test it. Alt and Shift. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just kind of a habit I've gotten into, I guess. So we'll just copy this over a bunch of times. And you can see now here at the end, this is what I was talking about before. The stripe goes a little bit too far, so I want to drag this road out. If I were not in object mode when I dragged this out, everything would get all messed up because each of these yellow pieces would have cut a slice out of my road. But since I am in object mode, it's really easy. I can just click on my road and then choose this option up here, the free transform tool. And then I can just grab that and drag it out so it's a little bit longer. And there you go. Bob's your uncle. So you can come out here and you can kind of fix these up if you want them to be a little bit more evenly spaced, but it's not a huge deal, just as long as they look like a road. Okay, so now you can add in some more things. Maybe I'll stick with my rectangle tool for now. Maybe I'll add in a building. So I'm going to stay in object mode because my building's probably going to have some windows that are going to be some white rectangles. So let me select white, and I'll just draw a little rectangle in here. Zoom out, zoom in just a little bit. So I can do the same thing I did before. So I'll select this, hold down Alt and Shift, move it over, hold down Alt and Shift and move it over. And then I'll hold down Shift and select all three of those, and you can vaguely see there's a little blue outline when I select those. So there's deselected. That's what selected looks like. It's kind of hard to see. I'm just going to use my arrow keys to center those, and then I'll hold down Alt again, and I can drag down all three, Alt and Shift. So pretty easily I've just created a little building. I'm going to go ahead and make some brown doors here at the bottom. When you're selecting colors, you may come in here and say, oh, there's not really any brown. If you have a hard time finding a color, you can always go up to this top little rainbow wheel thingy up here and select different, basically any color of the rainbow. So I'm going to come down here into like the orangey section, and right now it's set to white, but if I drag this down, it'll give me an option of more of a brownish hue. So I'll select that, and I'm just going to draw a little rectangle for a door. Maybe move it over a little bit, and then Alt and Shift, because I want to have a double door. So there you go, there's a little building you can draw. You could draw other buildings with rectangles or with shapes. If you want to use your Polystar tool, you can pretty easily, by clicking options, you can tell that you want to have a polygon that's three sides. That'll create a triangle for you. If we look over here at my other animation, that's what I used here to create that the top of this kind of church looking building. Okay. I'm not gonna do any more rectangles. I'm gonna show you how to use the brush tool. Now when you draw with your brush tool in this animation in particular, you probably want to turn your object mode off. And let me show you why. When you draw with object mode on, every time you do a little paint stroke like that, it's going to create that as an object. So I know a lot of times students want to draw something. Say for example, I want to draw a cloud. So my cloud is going to have a black outline. Actually, before I do that, let me change the color of my stage just so we can see it a little bit better, see what's going on. So my cloud, it's going to have a black outline, and a lot of times students, they'll start drawing something, and then they'll get about halfway done, and then they'll come back to it and draw the rest. Now when you draw this in object mode, you end up with two separate objects. So a lot of times a student will make those two separate objects, they'll grab their fill tool, and they'll set this to white so they can fill it, and then they come over here, start clicking, and they can't fill it. That's because these two objects are not linked together. So, oops, I'm making mistakes here. So if you wanted to fill that in, it's not going to work because they're two separate objects. Where if I were to draw that, do that same action with my object mode turned off, where I draw, I want black again, where I draw part of my cloud, and then I stop for a minute, and then I come back and draw the rest of my cloud. Since I'm not in object mode, that didn't create an object. This is all, if I just select it here, it'll tell me in my properties, this is all a shape. And you can see by the fact that it's all selected, it all went together, okay? So now I can really easily fill that. I want to deselect it first, and then grab my bucket tool, set my color to white, and then I can fill that pretty easily there, okay? So I recommend when you're doing your drawings to use your brush tool with object mode turned off, object drawing turned off. So I'll just leave that cloud. I'm actually going to move it off my stage. I'll show you why in a minute. Let's go ahead and draw a tree. One thing about drawing in Flash is you want to think about your order of things. So normally when I would draw a tree in real life, I'd probably draw the trunk, the brown part first, and then the leaves after. But in Flash, whenever you draw something, so say for instance I draw some leaves here, and then I fill those with my bucket tool. When I draw my my trunk here, I draw my trunk here, anything that I draw is going to go over my green like it does here. So if I were to have drawn my trunk first and then my leaves second, the leaves would have covered up my trunk, and that's not what I want. So I did that backwards there. You'll notice one thing. Let me actually redraw the trunk. A lot of times what I'll see a student do is they'll draw their trunk like this, and then they'll just come straight down, and then they'll come to grab their paint bucket tool to fill it up, and they'll notice the same thing. It's not working. If they fill right here, it will work, because what you see, the green of my leaves here, it does create an enclosed shape right here. This green part, it's all closed off. But down here, this inside blue part, it's not closed off. This road down here is a drawing object, not a shape like the leaves are here. So normally if this were a shape, that would have closed it off just like it did up here, but it doesn't close it off when you have a shape right next to a drawing object. So in this case, I'll just grab my brush tool and I'll just finish that off at the bottom there. Now that's one complete shape, so when I grab my bucket tool, it'll go ahead and fill that in for me. And you'll notice I do have to do it in two separate pieces because I've got the two lines there. But you can decorate this as much or as little as you want to. I'm just going to do about this much. I'm going to leave my cloud up here because I actually don't want my cloud to be moving with my animation. I want my cloud to just be sitting there. So I'm not going to include it when I make my selection right now. And I'm making a selection now so that I can create a symbol. So I'm going to convert this to a symbol, and I'm going to call it backdrop. And click OK. Oh, I already had a backdrop in there, so I'll just call this backdrop 2. So I'll call that backdrop, and you can see now it's all one whole piece without the cloud included. So if I come over here in my library, you can see there it is. There's backdrop. And if I wanted to make edits later, I could double click into it, make the edits here, and that would make all those changes out here. But I'm just going to go ahead and animate this now. So this is actually a pretty good starting location for my animation. You're going to want whatever object you have that's going to be your object that's the farthest to the left to have just a little bit of a gap between your stage and the object, just like I have here. And you want to go ahead and right click and say that you want to create a motion tween. Now when you do that, it's going to go ahead and give you some extra layers, or not layers, extra frames here. And you can see it gave me an extra layer because my cloud was on that same layer. So it moved my cloud out to its own layer and then give me my animation here on its own layer. So with this animation, I'm going to go ahead and call this one B1 for background 1. And while I'm at it, I'll call this cloud. And what we're going to do on this very first animation, you can see my playhead has already moved to frame 24. It's ready for me to move this. I'm just going to move this off to the left. And I have quite a bit of extra road here. You'll just want to make sure that you move everything that you have drawn off. So if that means you have to stretch out your road a little bit so that you have a little bit of blank road, then that's what you'll need to do. But I'm just going to move everything off. You can see if I scrub that playhead, that gives me my animation there of that moving off. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to have a second version or a second instance of my backdrop over here that basically follows this one. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'll call this one B2. And then I want to have this backdrop on B2 as well. I want to be in the exact same location as far as where the road is located. So I'm actually going to click on this one from B1, press Control C to copy, and then select my frame 1 here on B2 and press Control Shift V, and that will paste that in place. So you can see it doesn't look like anything changed. It's because it's exactly in front. So for the first frame, we want this to be off to the side. and then we're going to animate this coming in. So the most important part of this animation is we want it to loop so that when we play our video, we don't have something that kind of is a little bit jumpy like this is. See how that's pretty jumpy? So when this moves off, we want this second one to move into place, and we want this gray building here to be in the exact same location on frame 24 as this gray building is on frame 1. I know this is kind of confusing. It even confuses me every time. So what I'll do to ensure that when I move this gray building over that it's in the same place, I'm going to make one more layer, and I'm going to grab my line tool, and I'm just going to, on frame 1 here, I'm going to draw a little guide. And luckily for me, it created enough frames to come all the way over here to frame 24, so you can see when I get to frame 24, my guide is still there. If yours only put it on frame 1, like it would look something like this. If I go ahead and remove those frames, yours might look like this, where it's only on frame 1, and when you get over here to frame 24 where you actually need it, it's not there. So just click right there on frame 24 and then press F5, and that'll fill that out with frames. So that guide is there so that when we add our motion tween to what this backdrop that we have on B2, we'll be able to line the left side of this building up with that line. So we're ready to do that now. So I've clicked on frame 24 of B2, and we're going to right click and say create motion tween. My frames turn blue, indicating it's got a tween on it now. So I'm going to move this over. I'm holding shift while I do it so that it's nice and straight. And let me just zoom in, make sure that that looks good. Yeah, I lined that up pretty nicely. And now you can see if I play this animation, control enter, it's going to have a nice feel to it. It does get just a little bit choppy right here at the end, and that's just kind of the nature of it. Sometimes you can, oops, I thought I was holding space down, but I wasn't. So let me go here. Sometimes you can move this back just a little bit so that they don't, because what's happening is on frame 24, it's in the exact same location as frame 1, so it glitches there for a minute. So if I move it back just a little bit from my line, it should get a little bit smoother. Yeah, just a little bit smoother so it's not stopping when it gets to that line. So now we're actually done with this part. You remember I have my cloud here. It's got the same problem I had before where it's only on frame 1. So I'll come right here to frame 24 and press F5. Now my cloud is all there with me. You can see since it's on the very bottom layer, when I select this cloud, it's going to go behind things. And that's exactly what I wanted. I'm just going to put my cloud kind of right there. I don't want it to move with it, so I'll just go ahead and leave it there. Maybe on this same cloud layer, I could grab my oval tool and maybe set it to a nice yellow, and maybe I'll draw a sun in. One thing I get a lot of students asking is they say they want just the sun to be just up in this corner, and so they think they need to come in here and cut this off and everything, but really all that Flash is going to show is what's in your stage. So when I press Control Enter, all I see is what you have on your stage. I still have my little guide there, I know, I didn't forget about it. So we'll go ahead and close that. If I select layer 7, it automatically selects everything that's on layer 7, which right now is just our guide we drew, so I can just press delete to get rid of that. And we're just going to turn layer 7 into our car layer. So we want our car to be on top of everything else. So I'll come to my library, grab my car, drag it out here, and maybe position it a little bit. A lot of times students realize at this point that they maybe want their road or their tires to have a little bit more definition. Maybe their hubcap should be filled in instead of transparent like mine are. You can see when I export my movie, I get my bouncing car and my road. So I just have a couple finishing touches left. Maybe just for the sake of this video, I'm going to change my road to maybe like a dark gray instead. So this is a symbol right here, and I have two of the same symbol. So to make that change, I'm just going to double click on my backdrop, click on deselect and click on just my road. If I go to the properties of that road, that's a drawing object, I can just select a dark gray. That'll change that. Not only does it change it on the first one, but it changes on both of them since these are each copies or instances of that road. So now you can see my tires just a little bit better. That's nice. And then I want one more thing. This is a nice bluish sky here, but I don't want to have sky under here. So I'm just going to draw a sidewalk down there. So I'll grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to turn that back into object drawing so I don't want it to interfere with anything else. Make sure that I'm going to go on this background layer. So I probably shouldn't have called this cloud. Just know that since this layer is underneath these two background layers, anything I draw is going to go behind there. I don't want that color though, so I will tell it. Oh, I accidentally selected a shape when I did that. So rectangle tool properties, I'm just going to do light gray. And this will just kind of act as a sidewalk for my animation. So now I press Control Enter, and voila, there I have a nice animation. You could have made the sidewalk move with it and maybe have some lines in it, but that's not necessarily necessary. So again, you can add as much or as little as you want to this. The main gist is that you want to have a car that's bouncing up and down, whose wheels are spinning, look like it's driving down a road and having things pass it. Okay? So you could even have, when you draw this backdrop, it doesn't have to fit within your frame. You could have your initial backdrop road be this long with all sorts of different buildings on it, and then it would look a little bit more random because it wouldn't be repeating the same thing, tree or building, tree, over and over and over again, like mine does. But like I said, you can have as little or as many things as you want. So just make sure that you save that. So you can see mine's called car3.fla. When I do Control Enter to export it, you saw it said exporting SWF movie. That renders your SWF. So now in the same location where car3.fla is saved, there should be a car3.swf. So you can go ahead, take that, and turn it into the class website because you are done. Great job.